Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the Ducks and Pucks podcast with your hosts, Mike Walters and Eddie Jones. This is the number one home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
Welcome to the show. This is your host, Mike Walters, along with my co-host, Eddie Jones, and we have a good show for you this week. The Ducks have turned it around, winning their last 2 out of 3 games, playing much better. We're going to recap those games. We're going to talk about the coming week's games as well. We've also got plenty of fan questions from you about Perry and Getzlaf and Richie and Lindholm and Rakell and everything. So we're going to go over all of that. We also have some updates on Rakell and Lindholm as well for you. We're going to talk a little bit about Selanne and how he did in the Heritage Classic. And we're going to get through all of that, hopefully, in this show. And we'll start off, we'll go back to the road trip where we left off on our last show. The Ducks had, started out the season not doing so well. And unfortunately, they kept that trend against the Devils. They played a great first period, built the lead 1-0 on a Sami Vatanen goal, power play goal. But then in the second period, the Ducks got into some serious penalty trouble. They took 5 penalties. Taylor Hall took over, scoring twice on the power play. And the Ducks couldn't rally in the third, and they lost this game 2-1, Eddie.
Yeah, it was disappointing. I think they, like you said, they played a pretty good first period. No mistakes. They got a power play goal, and they go into the second, and the penalties started flooding in, and this seemed to be a trend, at least for this game, and obviously we'll talk about the Flyers game too, and they kept coming and coming and coming and coming. And to be fair, they were, deserving culprits on most of the penalties. And the Devils cashed in. Taylor Hall got his first and second goal as a New Jersey Devil, and the Ducks just couldn't get back into it from there. Schneider played good throughout the game. The Ducks didn't really put too many shots on him. They seemed to kind of be off their game after those 2 goals. It kind of set them back, and I think they let the penalty trouble get to them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Ducks were able to score on the power play, early on, but like we said, the penalties kind of killed them, and I think frustration kind of set in, and we kind of saw the old Ducks team where, in the past we had seen where they'd take too many penalties, and then they take 1 or 2, and then frustration sets in. They're reaching for the puck, or they're hooking, or they're doing little maybe lazy plays, or maybe plays where they're just not playing through their checks or on defense and whatnot, and so. The second period was really a killer in this one. The Ducks tried to rally in the third period. They peppered the goalie 9-5 in this one, and it just didn't work out. They tried to rally and tried to get back. They ended up losing by 1. Even pulled the goalie at the end, and they just couldn't get it done. It was such a close game. But like you said, Eddie, it really came down to the second period in this game. I thought the Ducks played a decent game in periods 1 and 2. They still won the face-off battle. But just came up short in this game.
Yeah, and it's something we talked about all last season, even the season before that, and how second periods were just an issue for the Ducks. And I think it is different this year. It wasn't so much penalty trouble the last few seasons. It was just bad play. It was like they would come out and they'd play amazing in the first and amazing in the third, and then a whole another team would come up for the second period. I don't think that was necessarily the case in this game. I think they just got into penalty trouble, and obviously we saw that with New Jersey scoring 2 goals on the power play. So, I think all in all they had a pretty good game, and other than goaltending from the Devils, really the second period and like we've mentioned is just getting the penalty trouble. I mean, the New Jersey had 7 power plays this game, so that's something you can't do against any team. New Jersey's not going to score a ton of goals on you, but when you give them 7 chances, they made them count. They scored 2 and ended up winning the game.
Yeah, not to be outdone in this game. The next game against the Flyers was almost a carbon copy in the first 30, 35 minutes maybe. The Ducks played a good first period against the Flyers. You had Chris Wagner. He scored finally his first goal as a Duck. He had those 4 goals with Colorado, so he was able to punch one in, which was good to see for him. And then the second period came around again, and we saw the same thing. The Ducks got shorthanded in this period 6 times. And we saw Philly take the lead. They scored twice and went up 2-1. But the difference in this game was, Corey Perry came back, scored a goal late in the second. Then Ryan Garbutt with that awesome pass from Holzer in the third period. And the Ducks held on and won this one, Eddie. So this one was, it started out the same as the game against the Devils, but the Ducks turned it around the second half of the game.
Yeah, and one thing we talked about, and we've heard other people talk about as well, is the Ducks needed to start getting depth scoring, and that was an issue for them in the first few games of the season. And obviously, you get a goal from Wagner, you get a goal from Garbett. I mean, you get two passes from guys you wouldn't expect to make passes. You get a nice drop pass from Bull for Wagner, and you get a insane pass from the back of the net by Holzer, which you wouldn't expect from him. And you just get two goals from guys you don't get goals from every night. Obviously, Perry gets back on the scoreboard, and he kind of blasts it from a space you don't expect a slap shot. But I mean, Getzlaf was applying the pick there, so a nice decision for Perry to take the slap shot there. And I think everything just came together in this game. They had a rough second period, like you said. Another game where they ended up taking 7 penalties as a whole. Obviously, like you said, 6 in the second period here, which really hurt them. They were able to kill off all of them except for the one where Simmons ended up scoring, and then the play where Matt Reed came in and wasn't on the power play, but disappointing there. But I think Perry being able to get that goal late in the second period was huge for them to go in to the third period, tied at 2. I think was huge for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think the momentum switched back in the Ducks' favor there at the end of the second period, ending up 2-2 there, and then Garbett getting the game winner in the third. The one of the stories for the Ducks too this season, and we'll talk about in the Vancouver game too, is the Ducks on the faceoff circle. I mean, they've just been crushing it. In this game, they were at 61% to the Flyers 39, and on the season, the Ducks are number 1 in the league. They're just below 60%. And faceoff. So, I mean, they've been killing it. They're 59.8 on the season after this last game against Vancouver. And you've seen the guys like Getzlaf and Vermette and Kessler just taking it to the other teams. I mean, they've just done very well on the Ducks. Vermette and Kessler over 60%. And you've seen Getzlaf just under 60%. He's been 57. So, I mean, those are some great numbers. And I really think that's what's helping the Ducks is, they've been winning the faceoffs, and then the key has just been, able to make that next pass and control the possession after that, which they had some trouble in the first couple games, but it seemed like in this game, and we'll talk about the Vancouver game too, that was really a key, Eddie, is the Ducks are not only winning the faceoff, but carrying the puck into the other team's zone and making some plays.
Yeah, and that's what's really changed, and I think it's been in these last 3 games too. I think they actually did it pretty well against New Jersey. Barring the second period, I think they started to do it. We saw a lot more of it against Philadelphia. They're playing more physical. Everybody's playing physical. A guy like Vatanen, who you wouldn't expect to play physical, he's playing physical on the boards. We're seeing a lot from Manson, who's really impressed me so far as well. Even Fowler, and a lot of the forwards too. They're being physical. They're hitting a lot, but they're making good hits. They're making hits that knocks the pucks loose. They're forechecking hard, and I think, like you said, winning the face-off and being able to keep that possession, I think that's been a big part of their game so far. And as one of our writers mentioned to us today, I can't remember who mentioned it, but they said that our possession numbers had jumped up. We were in the low, I think the low 20 bottom half of the league. We've jumped up to 9th now over these last 2 games, and you've seen that. You've seen the product of that against Philadelphia. Obviously, we saw it against Vancouver, which I think was their best game of the season so far, and that's been a really big thing for them. And I think if they can keep this going, we're going to start seeing them dominate more games and being able to actually come out with a result.
Yeah, and then speaking of coming out with a result, the Ducks had their season opener against Vancouver, and you had a Vancouver team that, not necessarily playing, super at a high level, but, they came into this game 4-0-1. They had trailed in 4 of the 5 games. They had come back to win 3 of them, and then they had lost in a shootout to LA the night before. So they come into Anaheim undefeated, and the Ducks just take it right to them. Right off the bat, Cogliano scores 33 seconds into the game, his team leading third goal, which, Vancouver gets back in it and ties it up. But then you have Fowler comes back in the second period. He gets his third goal. You also have Perry in the second period getting his third goal. You have Ritchie getting the game winner. And, I mean, the Ducks just really took it to Vancouver, especially in the third period. They just really went at them. I mean, they dominated the shots in this game. They dominated the faceoffs again, 65 to 35%. And I think this was the best game that the Ducks played this whole season, Eddie.
Yeah, and like you said, Vancouver, they do come into this game with a great record. You don't want to say that a team with a 4-0-1 record isn't a good team. I think they've been a little bit lucky. They won their first 3 games of the season without leading. They almost beat the Kings with doing the same thing. But it is still an important win for the Ducks, and really no game is easy in the NHL. And I think it was big for Cogliano to go out and get that goal. And you really can't fault the Ducks on the 2 goals. I mean, there was a mistake at the blue line which gave Horvat the breakaway for the shorthanded goal. But then you look at Henrik Sedin's goal, that goes in off Manson's skate, and there's not much they can do off that play. So I think all in all, they had a great game. Like you said, they dominated in the shots. They outshot them 37-19, and Vancouver blocked 21 shots too. So there was a lot of shot attempts by the Ducks in this game. They scored a power play goal. They dominated in hits. They've been dominating the face-off circle all season so far. They won 65% of the draws this game, and like you said, I think this was just their best game of the season. Everything was going right for them. Fowler continued his strong play. Getzlaf had a night with 3 assists. Ritchie gets his first goal, and you're getting goals from all across the lineup. So I think everything just clicked in this game, and hopefully we'll see that continue in these next few games, and hopefully they found their stride and their style of play.
And part of this too that changed it up was the Ducks lineup. Just before this game, they sent Raymond, Larson, and Sorensen down to the goals, and they brought up Camarosa, Theodore, and Scarbosa. So I thought that was kind of interesting. The Ducks changed it up a little bit. I know some people had mixed feelings about that. They with Raymond, they were kind of like, okay, you send him down, but then people were like, well, why is Sorensen and Larson going down? And then people were happy that Theodore was coming up. So there's all kinds of mixed reactions to this lineup change that kind of occurred, over this last weekend. But it worked out for the Ducks. I mean, you had Scarbosa and Camarosa in there, obviously Theodore as well. And maybe this is what's going to work, coming up in these next home games. One road game in San Jose, obviously, but, after that, the home stand.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that Scarbosa and Camarosa and Theodore coming up was the reason that they won, and I don't think you're saying that either. I think it's just, I think it's just they've hit their stride. They're playing their right style. We've seen the style change. Obviously, in the first 4 games, that they were just they were winning faceoffs like you said, but they weren't keeping the puck, and you saw that in their possession numbers. You saw that in the style of play and how desperate they're getting late in games. And then from what we've seen, the way they've changed their play and the way they've been playing the last few games, if they can keep that up, and we have no reason to doubt that they can keep that up right now. So I think these guys come up. It's good for them to get a shot. We all thought Camarosa probably would have started the season with the Ducks. Obviously with Edom coming in and then Sorensen making the team is a little bit different. But it's nice to see the Theodore up too. I think. We all thought he would start the season with the Ducks. It was a big surprise that Larson came up, and I think for his credit, he did play pretty well when he was up here too. But it's nice to have guys who can come into the lineup and make a difference. I mean, we've got Sorensen down there, we've got Nason down there. You've got Scarbosa and Camarosa, like that guys you brought up. You've got Larson down there now. Montour's down there, and he's playing well. You've got so many options. It makes it a lot easier for to fill holes if injuries come up, and just to fill any holes with the roster and anything like that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you got these guys, and I think part of the theme this season is we may see a lot of players go up and down between San Diego and Anaheim. So I mean, I would look for that. Rakell's coming back, so there'll probably be some more movement. He posted on his Instagram that he was in a plane today. And flying back, as we are assuming, you don't always want to assume, but we're pretty sure that that's what's going on. So he should be back with the team hopefully sometime this week, maybe a little bit later on. We'll see. But it's good to have him back, and we'll probably see some changes in the lineup a little bit. And we've got a lot of fan questions we're going to get to in a minute about all of this, and we'll talk about. But another thing that was impressive in this Vancouver win, Eddie, was the Ducks won their 900th career victory. That's pretty special. I mean, they've won 821 regular season games and 79 playoff games. So number 900, season opener, a dominant performance over Vancouver. I mean, it was a good night all the way around for the Ducks.
Yeah, and I think it's great to obviously get it in the home opener. And then to have it as them starting what hopefully is a run of good form for them right now. I think it kind of just all culminates together. And it's a nice little cherry on top of the cake right now to add in there, and just to have them to have their 900th franchise win, and everything just go so well in that home opener.
And I think another good thing too, which we talked about this last season, was Corey Perry and the slow start. I mean, the whole team had a slow start, but specifically, Corey Perry had a really slow start last season, and here you see him. He's already got 3 goals. He's now tied Korea on the all-time Ducks point list at 699. So it's good to see him get off to a good start as well. And Getzlaf too. Getzlaf's been playing well to start this season so far, Eddie.
Yeah, I mean, he's leading the league in assists right now, so he's not doing anything wrong. He's been shooting the puck more. Obviously, I mean, we saw in the first game he had 10 shots on goal. He's got 20 on the season right now, which is only 3 behind Corey Perry. So, I mean, he's doing something right. He's shooting the puck more. And obviously, I mean, nobody's ever questioning his passing ability, and the fact that he's leading the league right now in assists, and he's got 8 points in his first 6 games. I think that's a testament to how important he is to this team, and how important it was for him to have a start like this. Do we credit that to the World Cup of Hockey? It's kind of hard to say. I think it helps them coming off playing some meaningful hockey and being ready for the start of the season. But we talked about how important these 2 guys are to the team last year, and then having them start so slow last year was a big reason that the Ducks ended up going 1-7-2, I believe, to start the season. So having them leading the way, and Cam Fowler too. You can't really say anything bad about how he's playing. He's tied for the lead, the lead with the Ducks in goals. He's got 3 right now. Him, Perry, and Cogliano have 3, and he's tied with Perry for second in points with 5. I mean, his start has been great too. So all 3 of those guys have been really important to the Ducks' success over these last 2 games.
Yeah, and with that, speaking about success and kind of getting to the fan questions and whatnot, Richie scored his first goal. And we had Cameron ask if he can build off that goal, and maybe get some success going for him, as we've seen some of these other guys do. And I think it's a good question. I think that he can. I mean, he's been, playing with the Twins, and I think he's been doing better. He came up with that goal, and I do think he can build off of that. I mean, it was not only was it his first goal this season, but it was also a game-winning goal. So I think that was really huge, and I think it gives him a little bit of confidence, Eddie. And I do think he'll be able to, have more success this season with the Ducks than he did last season.
Yeah, I think so. And he's been playing really well. The offense obviously just coming in this last game for him. I mean, he's been hitting everything that moves. He's got 24 hits in only 6 games so far in this young season. So he's doing really well in that department. And obviously having an assist so far, getting that goal last night, which actually was a really good effort from him, knocking out of midair. And he does have 15 shots too, so he is shooting the puck. I think he's doing everything right. I tweeted out, I think it was in the Philadelphia game, that he's been really unlucky this season so far too. He's been in the right positions. Either the puck hasn't bounced to him, or the goalie's made a great save on him. And I think he's going to eventually start getting those bounces if he keeps getting into the right positions. And I think the offense is going to come from, do I think he's going to score 60, 70 points? No, for sure not. But I think if he can get, 30 to 40 points, that's a big, big step up for him. Obviously, last year, where he only had 4 points in the 30 or so odd games that he played. So I think, right now he's had a good start with the 2 points in 6 games. And if he can continue playing the way that he's playing right now, the goals are going to come for him.
Yeah, I agree, and I think this rolls into the next question we had coming from another Cameron Nava. This time asks us about how the Ducks have done so far this season. How well do you think they will do, and will they make the playoffs? And before the season, we talked about this, and we thought that the Ducks, the Kings, and the Sharks would be in the top 3, and that's how it would go. And obviously, things have changed a little bit. Quick getting injured in LA. Rakell and Lindholm, they're not with the team. I mean, Rakell's on the way back and things like that. But I still do think that this team is a playoff team. I don't think they're going to be first or second. That's kind of my opinion right now. I mean, they've played well in these last 2 games. Obviously, this is just a snapshot. We've got a long, long way to go throughout the season. But I do think that Ducks have a chance of making the playoffs. I think they will, but my biggest concern is really them getting in the playoffs and then going from there. 2 years ago, came within 1 game of the Stanley Cup, and then last year booted out in the first round, kind of took a step back. So I think the key for the Ducks is if they stay healthy, can play like they have in these last 2-3 games, then yeah, I definitely think they'll make the playoffs. It's just a question of what they do from there. And it's very, very early, very early. But just in what I've seen so far, yes, I'd say that they have a good chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, I think they do. At the beginning of the season, we had our season preview, and obviously had some issues with it, and it never got out there. But we had the Ducks, Kings, and Sharks finishing 1, 2, 3. Probably the Sharks finishing first, and the Ducks and Kings finishing around that. Now we look at how Edmonton started so far, and it really looks like they're going to take that big step forward this year. They're 5-1-0 right now. They've been scoring goals for fun. Their goaltending has been great. Their defense has been a lot better as well. So they're going to be up there, and with the Kings losing Quick for about 3 to 4 months, and then now losing Zakov for a couple weeks, I think they might struggle. They have won 2 games in a row, but I think it's going to be hard for them to keep it up. We saw Montreal last year how much it meant to them and their season losing Carey Price. They started the season I think it was 9-0-0, and they ended up collapsing without Carey Price in net. So it'll be interesting to see how long the Kings can sustain their success over the last few games, and if they can continue to win games without Jonathan Quick. I think that's a big boost for the Ducks for sure. You never like to wish any injury on any players, but it's hard to ignore the fact it's going to be a big boost for the Ducks with the Kings not having Jonathan Quick. So I think it's up right now between the Ducks, the Sharks, and the Oilers, and I think that could be how it finishes. The Sharks have lost 2 in a row. Ducks are on a 2-game winning streak. Oilers on a 3-game winning streak. And like you said, it is early. But from the way we've seen those 3 teams play, they look like the 3 biggest teams in the Pacific Division right now. So, if the Ducks can continue this strong play as of late, and find their identity throughout the season, get guys like Rakell back, get Lindholm back, I think they definitely have what it takes to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and one thing you bring up in there is the Kings, and it's interesting. This last week I went to Fox Sports West downtown LA, and I did a show talking about the Ducks and the Kings on their. They have a 10 West podcast. If you haven't heard about it, and we'll post a link accompanying this our podcast, so you can go click on there. But we posted on social media and whatnot too, and they talked about. Their goalie situation too. They had a Kings blogger on there and myself, so we went back and forth. But the latest thing that's kind of interesting that's linked the 2 teams together, and Cheryl asks about this, is whether or not the Kings are going to try and go after Bernier. There's been reports out there, and she asks if it's true or false, and what's going to happen, who would replace him, and how would it all work out if the Ducks did do that. And, I can't speak for the Kings organization. I don't know what they're thinking. I would think that them going after Bernier would be something logical that would fit for them. But, looking at the salary cap and looking at cap friendly, they only have about $1 million in salary cap. So, I don't know for sure, but if I was to lean towards one way or another, I don't think the Ducks would do that trade. I really think that they would keep Bernier. He's done well so far. It's only really been 1 game, but I don't think that they would do that. They could do that and then pull up someone from San Diego, but I kind of lean on the side more of I don't think the Ducks will make that deal with LA.
No, I don't think so. It's easy. It's easy to say that the Kings would look at Bernier. They're looking at anybody right now. Pavlik is playing in the minors for Winnipeg. I'm sure they've looked at him. I'm sure they've looked at. Obviously, they haven't looked at guys like Fleury and Bishop. They're looking for more short-term fixes for them. I'm sure they've looked at as many options as they can right now, especially with Jeff Zakov going down for at least a week right now with what I believe is a groin injury as well. So they're definitely looking at some options, but for one, I don't think they can take on the $4 million that Bernier has. They'd have to be sending a body back the other way, which I know they don't really want to do. And the Ducks need Jonathan Bernier right now. They've got John Gibson, obviously, and he'll probably play a majority of the games this season, around 50 games. But if you take away Jonathan Bernier, you've got Matt Hackett. You have Dustin Tokarski. You don't have many options as strong as Jonathan Bernier to fill that backup role, and I think they brought him in and they made that trade to be the main backup for John Gibson. So no, I don't think there's any real merit behind that story, behind the Kings going after Bernier, other than the fact that the Kings need a goalie. He used to play there. I think that's the only real link to it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just that his prior time playing there. But along the theme of the goalies, we had another question. Frederick asks us about what's our honest opinion on the Ducks goalie situation? Who do we think looked stronger? And I would say in the first couple games, I probably would say Bernier looked better. Gibson didn't play particularly well in the first game. The second game he did better. So in the first couple games, I would say Bernier looked better. But if you look at the last couple games, Gibson's looked very strong. He played well in Vancouver. The two goals he gave up weren't necessarily his fault. You go back to the Philly game too. You can't really blame him so much in that game either. I think he's played better. So I mean, of the two, right now, I would say Gibson's played better. And like you pointed out, I think the Ducks, they need both of these guys. I mean, this week they're going to be playing back to back with San Jose and Nashville. You're going to most likely see both of them playing those games. And I just don't think there's anybody else the Ducks can bring up that they can rely on enough to give Gibson a break throughout the regular season.
No, and I think with Bernier only playing one game and Gibson playing 5 right now, I think it's hard to judge who's been better. I know Bernier looked really, really good in the game that he did play in, and that's not to say John Gibson's looked bad either. I mean, his numbers aren't great. He's only got a .891 save percentage. His goals against average is at 2.6 right now, but he's only played 5 games. And it's hard to judge his play on that. I think he's been solid at times. There are a couple times where he's made a couple mistakes. There are other times where he's been left out, to dry. We saw that last night with the Horvat breakaway. Got really unlucky last night as well with the goal that Henrik Sedin scored off Manson's skate. So I think all around he's been good enough. I think he can be better. I think we all know he can be better. We saw how he played last season. I think he's just going to have to adapt to being the number one guy, and that might take a little bit, but I think he's been good enough for the Ducks to win games this season, and I think having a guy like Jonathan Bernier back there behind him is definitely helpful.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's the way the Ducks are going to roll. They're going to roll with both. Obviously Gibson's going to play the majority, but Bernier is going to give him enough time there, and I think that's the key, and that's also why I don't think the Ducks will make any kind of move with LA. Along with some of the other players, we've had some more news about Rakell and Lindholm, and of course we've got fan questions about both of them. So, we'll start out with Rakell. We have a couple questions here. We have Braden asks about, what kind of impact will Rakell have on the lineup? We have Eddie asks, kind of similar, what role or line will Rakell play in the Ducks? And I think this is a very interesting question because, as we talked about earlier, you look at the Ducks, you look at their face-off percentages. Getzlaf, Vermette, and Kessler are just killing it. They're getting between 57 and 67, and face-off percentage efficiency. All three of them have been doing extremely well. And then you look at Wagner. Wagner's at 44%, and you look at Rakell over his career. And he's around 46, 47%. So it raises an interesting question with Rakell flying back now and hopefully joining the team later this week. Where will he be? There's a couple options here, Eddie. I mean, he could go on the fourth line and play center, and then Wagner goes over to the wing, or maybe he plays wing with either Getzlaf and Perry, or maybe with Vermette, and Wagner stays at the fourth line. And that's kind of what I lean towards. I think Rakell is more likely to play the wing spot. I mean, the good thing is he can do either or, but I don't know if Rakell and Carlisle are going to want to, see him on that fourth line being the center. I think they would want him, on one of the other three lines where he could generate more offense.
Yeah, and normally I would agree. I really do think he needs to be in our top 6. But with the way Richie has played on that top line, and obviously with the way Cogliano and Kessler and Silverberg have played over the last season and this season, it doesn't really look like those guys could be split apart. I think if you look at one thing that might tell you a little bit about where Rakell plays. If you look at last night's game, Wagner actually played on the right wing on the third line last night, and Scarbosa and Cramarosa actually took most of the draws on that fourth line. That might tell you something of where Rakell could play. Obviously, when Rakell comes back, we'll see one of those guys, either Scarbosa or Cramarosa, go down. And maybe Rakell actually slots in on the third line center, and you see Vermette move down. That is a possibility there too. But no, there's always a chance that he might go back. He might go up on the top line and play with Getzlaf and Perry. We said anything could happen with that second line, but it looks like they're staying together for the foreseeable future. So I think if they bump him all the way down to the third line, I would expect him to either play on the wing with Vermette, like you said, or to play center and push Vermette down. I think they have those options right now. I think with them pushing Wagner to the wing for the last game to bring up guys like Scarbosa and Cramrosa, I think that tells a little bit, but we won't really know until he suits up for his first game, and then they announce the lineups.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right there. I think that he would, be on the third line with Vermette, in a wing capacity, or either he plays the third line center and Vermette plays the fourth line center. I think it's got to be something like one of those two things. I mean, obviously anything can change or happen, but I think you're right. The top two lines, the way they've been doing, and that's another fan question we had from Chad. He asked about if Getzlaf and Perry would stay together, and I think they will. I think you're right. I think they keep Ritchie with Getzlaf and Perry. They keep the Kessler line with Cognato and Silverberg together, and I really think it's the third and the fourth lines that they're going to shuffle around. That's what I would do. That's how I would play it. You got the top two lines. It's only been a couple games, but they're doing well. Don't mess with it. I would say leave it alone. And try Rakell with Vermette, or put Rakell at center and Vermette on the fourth line, something like that. I think it's got to come down to the bottom six, unfortunately. But with the way the Ducks played last year and the way that they're going to play this year, the Ducks don't really. It's like they have a bottom six, but they really don't. It's just kind of weird. The Ducks have those top three lines, and they rotate them around so evenly. It's hard. They're not like a traditional team. You know what I mean, Eddie? It's just different. So even though he would probably be in a bottom six role, it's not really like that. It's more of a a third line role, I would say.
Yeah, and he's still going to get 18 minutes a night, most likely, if not more, if you factor in power play time. You would expect him to still play a lot. He's an important player of this team. No matter where he plays, he's going to play a lot for the Ducks. So I don't see an issue that being that there. I think one thing that's nice that we don't have to worry about this year is we don't have to worry about lines being juggled when the Ducks are playing well. You'd expect them, when they come out and line up against San Jose after the great game they had against Vancouver, you'd expect them to have very similar lines unless Rakell is ready to play. I'm not sure when he is scheduled to return. I doubt he makes an appearance tomorrow. Like you mentioned today, and you tweeted out that off his Instagram that he is on a plane. We assume he's on a plane back to Anaheim after signing a contract, and everything should be good. I'm not sure where he is, in regards to his health right now. But when he does come back in the lineup, if the Ducks are still playing well, you would expect the lineups to stay the same this year. And that's something different, obviously, we're not really used to with the way Boudreau would swap lines around over the last few seasons. So it's kind of nice for us not to really have to predict and say, oh, you got to wait and see now. If they're playing well, he's definitely going to play not on those top two lines you would expect. So, we'll have to see. I think they keep Getzlaf and Perry together for now. They've been playing well. It's important to keep them playing well together. We've talked about how well the Cognato, Silverberg, and Kessler line gels together, and if they keep playing well, they're going to stay together.
I agree, and we're just going to have to wait and see this week when Rakell gets back and see what happens. But I agree with you, and I think he'll be in that third or fourth line role. Going over to his buddy, of course, everybody wants to know about Lindholm, and there's been a lot of news about Lindholm recently about whether or not he's going to be traded, if he's going to be resigned. There's a lot of stuff going on, and part of this equation is Simone Dupré was placed on the long-term IR. So the Ducks got back a little over 3.3 or 3.4 million, according to Cap Friendly, the way that the numbers broke down. So the Ducks got more room there. They still haven't put Nate Thompson on the long-term injury reserve, which is a question we got about from Patrick. He asked if the Ducks are going to do that and try and keep Lindholm and not trade Fowler. It's a valid point. I mean, they definitely could try and do that. We talked about this on the last show, because if Nate Thompson goes on the IR, that's another 1.6, 1.5. So it would put Ducks, in that area. It would be close, maybe not quite, but I think that the Ducks would try to work it out and re-sign him. And I think that they wouldn't try to trade him. At least that's the indication I got from our GM, Bob Murray, yesterday. He talked to me a little bit, and he's pretty adamant about trying to get him re-signed. And I think that's the direction they're going to go. I mean, could he be traded? Of course, he could be traded, but I would think the Ducks would try to keep him first, Eddie, before going that route.
Yeah, for sure. You would expect them to keep him. I mean, he is arguably their best defenseman. I mean, you can, with the way Fowler's played to start this season, you could throw him into that mix for sure. And it that also does make things a lot harder for them. He was a guy that was mentioned, and we've mentioned before too, as the most likely guy to be traded. He has put up 5 points, 3 goals in his first 6 games, and he's been the Ducks' best defenseman by a mile so far. It's hard to really say what's going to happen. I mean, we don't want to see Lindholm be traded. They, like you said, they freed up some cap space with Dupre, obviously temporarily, only until he's healthy again. They have the option to do that with Nate Thompson, which frees up some space. But if you do sign Lindholm, something still has to be done. That hasn't changed. I mean, there still has to be a move that's going to be made on the blue line for the Ducks. There's no getting around that. If Lindholm signs, there's a logjam. I mean, there's already a logjam on the blue line without him, and then when he comes back, he's obviously going to play, and that changes some things for the Ducks. Obviously, Theodore can be sent down, but even with him being sent down, there is still some issues for the Ducks there, and it'll be interesting to see how they do this now. Fowler starting so well just throws a whole nother wrench into this whole situation that we've been dealing with over the last few months, now the whole summer and now into the start of the season. And it just gets crazier every time we talk about it every week. And I mean, now with Fowler playing well, contract still not signed. Apparently they're down to what looks to be about $250,000 between the team and the player and the agent. So it's getting closer, but I mean, it's tough to say when it's actually going to get done.
Yeah, and the other issue here too, and this was, I was asked of this on the Fox Sports West podcast, is, what if the Ducks do put Nate Thompson on long-term injury reserve, and they already have Dupre there? Do you try and re-sign Lindholm, get the deal done, knowing that that's a short-term fix? Because obviously you're going to have to bring at least Nate Thompson back at some time, and that's going to put you over the cap. Dupre, unfortunately, his status is completely up in the air. I feel bad for the guy. I don't know what's going to happen to him. I don't know if he's going to come back or when he's going to come back. I don't even want to speculate because I just don't know. But unfortunately, if the Ducks do all these moves and try and do this and send some players down and rearrange some things, they could definitely get it done, I think, to bring Lindholm in. Like you said, it's going to be a log jam on the blue line, but then they're going to have problems a few months down the road. They're going to have to figure out what they're going to do when Thompson comes back, and then with the Dupre situation, which, I mean, it could be a whole host of things. And like I said, I don't want to speculate, but there could be a lot of things going on with Dupre right now. We just know that he's out. He's not ready to go. It looks like he may be experiencing some of the stuff he had from before, and it's just a unfortunate situation for him. So I would try and get that done, and that's what I talked about on their show too. But unfortunately, it's not a permanent solution, Eddie. So the Ducks are still trying to work this out, and unless a trade is made, I would try and get it done, and then maybe you try and get a trade done before the trade deadline.
Yeah, it makes it the most likely option right now that we see Thompson go on the long-term injured reserve, and that some space is freed up to sign Lindholm. That seems to stand as the most likely option right now. Then they have a little bit more time to judge what they want to do in regards to a trade, but we don't know how long Dupre is going to be out. I mean, he could be out for the whole season. He could be out till the trade deadline. He could come back in a couple weeks. I mean, with a concussion, you really never know. We see Sidney Crosby is practicing again, and he's almost ready to come back for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, I mean, you really just don't know when he'll be ready to come back. So it gives you that short-term option, but for a GM, you don't know how short-term or if it's going to be a long-term decision. And really, it doesn't relieve that much stress, I think, for Bob Murray. He's still going to have to make a deal. They've got some short-term solutions that they can really use and utilize right now. But something's going to have to happen. And we've mentioned this multiple times. When Dupre comes back, is any team really going to want to trade for him? A guy who's had that many concussions at such a young age in such a physically demanding position, and even he's the way he plays the game is physically demanding too. It's just tough. It's tough to say what they're going to do right now. Fowler's done nothing but up his trade value, so there's the option there, and there's always the dreaded option of also trading Hampus Lindholm, which we mentioned a couple minutes ago. So there's many different ways the Ducks could go at this right now, and we're just gonna have to wait and see what kind of rabbit Bob Murray pulls out of his hat.
Yeah, and along with that too, we heard from Bob McKenzie too about the Ducks possibly trading to a team in the East. So some of those teams have popped up. Those names. Detroit had been there before. Buffalo. I recently heard New York Rangers name come up too as well. So there's a lot of these that have come up. Nothing solid, nothing legitimate. But I mean, there's talks of these other teams expressing interest, and it's going to be interesting to see if it comes down to a Lindholm or a Fowler type situation. What do they do? I mean, it's a tough situation for Bob Murray, and I hope he gets it resolved, because I know he's gotten unwanted messages this week, unfortunately. So I'm hoping that it gets done and he gets it resolved, and then all of us can relax and go on with the season, at least on that front, and hope the Ducks carry on the momentum. So that's where we're at. We'll see what happens, and keep you updated on all of that. We have one more interesting fan question. I thought this one, people had commented on this as well, Eddie, is Matt asks us about David Perron and how he, how we felt about him getting a hat trick in St. Louis. And I mean, I'm happy for the guy. I'm glad he got the hat trick. I mean, he didn't want to stay. He wanted to go to St. Louis. Because Matt asks if we're depressed about it, and I mean, yeah, I wish he was on our team, of course. Especially, the Ducks can use a 20-goal potential scorer, but he's doing good over there in St. Louis, and you know what, I'm happy for him over there. That's where he wanted to be, and that's what he's gonna do for the rest of the season, or at least the next couple.
Yeah, and I'm bummed, like you said, just because it would be nice to have him on the team. He, like you said, he's a guy who can score 20 goals. He scored a hat trick, so he's a guy that can come out and do that. So I mean, you're obviously gonna miss a guy like that on your team, but the way he left is fine by me. I mean, he's going back to the team where he started at, where he wants to be, where he played a lot of seasons at. So he's going back to them, and I think that's fair enough. That's a good reason to want to go back to a team. And it's nice to see him do well there, obviously. I mean, hopefully he doesn't do it against us when we play St. Louis, but it's nice to see him do well and play well, and help St. Louis win some games. So I think good for him, and hopefully we can find somebody that can do that for us.
I agree, and I hope he doesn't do well when we play him.
Yeah.
So with that, I do want to mention Sons of Hockey is sponsoring this podcast, as they've done the last one and the next couple. If you get a chance, check out their hockey t-shirts. You can go to sonsofhockey.com. They're also donating some money to fight cancer, which obviously is a good cause. And myself, and I know a lot of other people out there have people you either know or people that know of people that have been affected by it. So check them out, sonsofhockey.com. They're big supporters of us, and we are as of them as well. So if you get a chance, visit sonsofhockey.com. With that, we're going to finish up the podcast with a couple things here. One is the Alumni Heritage Classic game. We had Selanne play in this game, and he did pretty good. I mean, obviously it's not, necessarily, current players, but it was kind of an exciting game, Eddie. He had a couple goals, penalty shots, some assists. He had 5 total points. It was good to see him out there. It was, something fun for, people that could watch it if you were able to do so.
Yeah, I caught a little bit of it, and obviously he was the hero in this game. I think they might have generously awarded him with that penalty shot at the end of the game there for the Winnipeg home fans. But I think he'll take that.
Let's not talk about that.
I think he'll take that any day of the week. And I mean, he comes out and he does what only Teemu Selanne can do, and he scores 5 points and leads the team to victory against, I mean, one of the greatest teams to ever be assembled in the Edmonton Oilers. You get Gretzky and Messier and the guys on that team. So I mean, it's all for fun. It's not a serious game or anything like that. It's obviously nice to see him do well. I mean, he mentioned in an interview at the end of the game that it would just take him a couple weeks and he'd be ready to go. I mean, obviously we know that's a little bit different when we talked to him before. He seems to be enjoying his time in retirement, so I think he's not coming back anytime soon. So, but it's nice to see him play again. Nice to see all those guys play, and obviously, just a fun event for everybody involved.
Yeah, and I joked on Twitter, he got the key to the city of Winnipeg. So I said, hey, let's give him the key to Anaheim. Why not, right?
Well, if
So
anybody
I
deserves
don't
it,
know.
it's him, right? So
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's just all kidding aside. Yeah, I mean, it's good to see him play, and obviously he's joking around saying he'd be back in 2 weeks and whatnot. Try not to read into it too much. I don't see that happening. Like you said, he was on our podcast, right after when we had the game, the charity game during the summer. So he came on there and talked to us a little bit about that. So that's not his intent. He's happy with retirement, and that's what's going to happen. But we wish him well. It's always good to see his updates. He had a funny post, if you missed it, on his Instagram where he teed off on a golf ball on the Honda Center ice, which that was pretty funny as well. So he's been posting some stuff, and he's been having a good time. And he's always, a fan favorite forever in Anaheim. So check out his Instagram and his Twitter if you haven't. I try to catch up on some of the stuff and post it and get everybody involved on those funny moments he has. But with that, the Ducks are going to try and continue their momentum. They built up the 2 wins. We've got some more games this week. They're going to go on a short road trip to San Jose to play the Sharks. Then they're going to come back home the next night, play Nashville, and then they're going to play Columbus. In this next 3-4 days here. So a little bit of an interesting schedule. These 3 teams are not doing, great. They're not doing poorly. They're, playing 500 or right around there. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Ducks handle the goalie situation, as we talked about, if Gibson's going to go in San Jose or Nashville or Bernier, vice versa. Obviously, we'll probably find out during the morning skate before the San Jose game. But of these 3 games, I think the Ducks should be able to win 2 out of 3. We said that last week, and they won 2 out of 3. I think that the big game that's going to really start off the week and see how it goes, Eddie, is really going to be the Shark game. Because, you go back to that preseason game, the Ducks and the Sharks went at it, and, they've gone at it for the last couple seasons. And it's been kind of interesting. People talk about rivalries and they talk about the Ducks and the Kings. But, I look at the Sharks game, and this might be a pretty tough game because the Ducks and the Sharks really don't like each other, Eddie.
yeah, and what the scary thing is too is the Sharks, as a team, haven't got going yet. I mean, Brent Burns and Pavelski, they've been good so far, but Marlowe and Thornton and Couture, they haven't got going yet. So this is sort of a sleeping giant, and you don't want to catch them at the wrong time where they're going to start going on roll. They've lost 2 in a row. So they're going to be angry, and they're going to be playing at home for only the second time this season. So it's going to be a big game for the Ducks, and I think you got to win this one and set the tone for the rest of the next 2 games. Obviously, you get to play against Nashville and Columbus in Anaheim, but I think this is a big game for them. And obviously, getting a big win and then going into your home barn the next night is huge for them too. But this is going to be a tough one. Nasty games in the preseason, first meeting this season so far. You're playing in the Shark Tank, which is going to make it even nastier when you're playing on the road. So I think it's an important game for them. This is going to be, I think, the closest one out of the 3. I mean, this is they're healthy. They're waiting to get going. I think this is going to be a tough one. Obviously, playing Nashville, who are a very good team, you're playing them the night after, playing such a physical and what we expect to be such a rough game. Nashville's, struggling with a little bit of issues of their own right now. They're going through a bad case of food poisoning where a lot of their players are out right now, and they had to call up actually 5 guys from their AHL team. Ryan Johansson seems to be struck with the food poisoning. We've got Craig Smith. Apparently, there's a rumor that possibly either Pekka Rinne or Marek Mazanek have food poisoning as well. And, obviously a slew of other guys might have it in that locker room as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how they line up come that game. They might have a lot of key guys out too. Obviously, the newly acquired PK Subban is going to be healthy and playing in that game. Roman Josi, they've still got some threats. Philip Forsberg, obviously James Neal. So it's always going to be a tough game. And then lastly, you got Columbus, who... I mean, a lot of people think they're going to be a really bad team this year. I think I might be one of the only people to think they might be trending upwards. They've won their last 2 games after starting 0-2, and they beat Dallas actually the other night 3-0. Yeah. So they look to be going in the right direction. They've got the Kings coming up tomorrow, and I think their next game after that obviously is against us. So it'll be interesting to see what type of Columbus team we end up facing. And I think they're all going to be tough games. I think the Columbus game we should be winning. I think Nashville and San Jose are going to be the 2 tough games of this of this week coming up. Obviously, playing Nashville on a back-to-back is going to be tough too. But I think if we can win 2 out of 3, like you said, obviously winning 2 out of 3 is always good for them, and they did that the other week, or this last week that we talked about. So I think it'll be big for them. It's a big next 3 games to get above 500. So hopefully they can come out, and next time we have the podcast, they'll be sitting somewhere around 500.
Well, you know what? This is the question I have: is when Nashville comes to town, are we going to feed them raw catfish? I mean, is that why they had the food poisoning? I mean, remember they were throwing it on the ice against us last year, and they thought it was so funny during the playoffs. The catfish on the ice, ha ha ha. I mean, what's going on? I mean, I wonder what they ate. Maybe they shouldn't have thrown that catfish. Maybe that's
that
what's going
might
on with
be
it. Maybe
the issue.
Become our friend.
Well, they've got 4 days of
friend.
rest right now. They're coming off playing Pittsburgh on the 22nd, so they got 4 days of rest. So they might all be healthy. But if it is the catfish, that might be an issue they've got to sort out there.
Okay, so we need to we got to go catch some more catfish and make some more for them. No.
Yeah.
No, but in all seriousness, yeah. I mean, it's weird. It's weird to see a team go through that. So hopefully, I know the Ducks have had. You said Nashville had some time off when they come to play the Ducks. So, maybe they won't be 100% still. I don't know. We'll have to see. So, I think you're right though. I think them getting off to a good start against San Jose, if they can catch Nashville, with their issues of their catfish issues, maybe they can, win that one. And then, like you said, Columbus has been trending upward. Like you said, they beat a Dallas team 3-0. I mean, it's Dallas. It's not just anybody. And Dallas has been, they're doing okay this season. But I think it'll be 2 out of 3 is what I predict for the Ducks. I think that if they can beat San Jose, I think they're in a good shape to win all 3. But if not, I think it'll be 2 out of 3 this week, Eddie. And like you said, hopefully maybe the Ducks, the next podcast we do, they'll be above 500. But the San Jose game this week, it's probably the key matchup. And the reason why is the Ducks are 1 point behind them. And obviously it's a 4-point game. So if the Ducks can win and leapfrog them there and be ahead by a point, that would be fantastic. We don't want to go to overtime, and obviously we don't want to lose in any fashion. So of the 3 games, that is the most important game. And obviously we have to keep out for an eye out for Rakell and see when he comes back. And I think that's another key this week, Eddie.
Yeah, and it is a 4-point game. Obviously it's early, and it might not have right now, it might not look like it has any bearing on the standings, but when we look back on this near the end of the season and we see where the Sharks are, where the Ducks are, all these games matter when you play the Kings and the Sharks and the Canucks like last night, and even the Oilers as well. These are all important games. You play these teams so often, and to be able to take 2 points off them and leapfrog them in the standings is going to be huge. So anytime you play them, it is a big game. And like you said, hopefully. We don't expect him to be ready for tomorrow. I think if we can see him against Columbus, talking about Rakell, obviously, see him against Columbus, I think that'll be huge for him. If not, I know the Ducks have, I believe it's 3 days of rest after the Columbus game, so hopefully, if not Columbus, in the game after that.
Yeah, I agree. And, as the updates come, we'll be posting them. We gave away some 2 tickets to one fan on the opening day game. So those people had some great time. We'll be giving away more stuff throughout the season. Also, check out our shirts as well, tpnhockey.com. The shirts have now been dropped to $9.99 or less. Trying to clear out some of the stuff so we can make some newer stuff. So check that out as well. And with that, we'll be back next week, and let's go Ducks.